Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a good coffee break with plenty of coffee as we come to the end of the first day. And just a reminder for those of you who may be late or new to the conference, the presentations can be in English and or in Russian. So if you need a headset, a translation headset, they're available in the corner. So the final session of the day is on supply chain. Our theme for this year has been looking at Russia from east to west and from materials to the dealer. So looking at the complete supply chain as well. So this is where this session comes into play. There's been a move towards having more of a supply chain approach. Before it was maybe freight and transportation and then logistics, and now supply chain. I'm not sure in most of the countries, even in the supposedly more advanced automotive regions, that we have a true supply chain approach. But here's an opportunity to discuss what's being done in Russia to look at the complete supply chain. We've got a variety of different participants in this session, including car makers, looking at from the supply chain side, from materials side, from purchasing side, from the service parts side as well. So I think that will give you a broad remit, and of course we have a logistics service provider to give us some examples of how they fit into this big supply chain focus. We hope, time permitting, to have a voting survey at the end of this session. So if you have not signed in to Automotive Logistics Russia Live, please do that on your mobile phones, on your smartphones, on your computers, or on your tablets, because it would be, you don't want to miss out on this opportunity to be part of the survey. That'll be done at the end of the session, but if you can try and log on during the session, it will save you time at the end. The instructions for how to do this are on the inside back page of the conference program. But we've got a great session coming up. So in order to help us get to the gala dinner on time and to miss the world famous Moscow traffic, let's get this session started by looking at a perspective from Toyota Motors, perhaps particularly from the after sales and service parts side. So I'd like to welcome to the podium Andrei Sherbakov, Director of Parts Supply Chain and Warehouse Operations from Toyota Motor. Thank you, Andrei.
Добрый день, дамы и господа.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I represent Toyota Motor, the official importer and distributor of vehicles and spare parts in the territory of the Russian Federation and Belarus Republic. Our dealership network covers the country from the Far East, including Vladivostok, Nakhodka, and Khabarovsk, to Kaliningrad, the westernmost city. As of now, we have 105 dealers of Toyota and 45 Lexus dealers. The main task of the Department of Spare Parts supply to the end user, to the dealership, with minimal costs in terms of time and minimal costs in terms of money. Let's consider how a simple spare parts supply chain looks like, and let's try to understand whether it is really as simple as it may seem. The main part of or the main driver of the demand for the spare parts is the customer who comes to the dealership in terms of repair or maintenance of his vehicle. And that's probably the main moment for the further formation of the demand for any spare part and for making a decision on the side of the dealer or distributor where to store these spare parts and in what volumes. Next key link is the dealer himself, and you have to understand that dealers are the key element for the whole supply chain, because Depending on how the dealer orders the spare parts from the distributor may take one decision or other in terms of how quickly or vice versa, how non-urgently the supply is necessary. Further in my presentation, I'll try to focus my attention on the relations between the distributors and the dealers. The same slide shows you that the value of the spare part itself is manifested only when it is installed on the vehicle of the customer or when it is sold to the customer. All the rest of the logistic chain are the costs which we as distributors would like to optimize and cut down. And the costs may be cut down in all the spheres of logistics, including storage, transportation of the part or component from the manufacturer or the parts distribution center. We can also optimize the warehousing operations. What are the duties of the distributor and responsibilities in the market? First and foremost, we see our main task as the securing of a very wide scope of parts for vehicles, and our target is the immediate demand satisfaction or service rate higher than 97%. The second factor is the logistics from the central warehouse located in Moscow, and starting from January this year we have opened the regional spare parts warehouse for Toyota and Lexus is in Novosibirsk, and here the task of the distributor, in our understanding, is to secure the guaranteed time of delivery or lead time. I want to draw your attention to the word guaranteed. We cannot and we do not want to deliver the spare parts to the dealer later than the setup time term or earlier. On the basis of this guaranteed lead time and the statistics that the dealer sees in terms of its orders, the dealer may take a decision in terms of the depth of the stock depending on the fluctuations of the lead time. The second factor, which is also very important and can influence the stock of the dealer, is the high frequency of delivery. Starting from 2010, we have transferred the central warehouse in Moscow to be working 7 days per week, and we can secure everyday shipments to the dealers and everyday receival of the spare parts by the dealers. Thus, the dealers' warehouses and stocks may be optimized as well. The deliveries from the warehouse go in accordance with fixed schedule. Each dealer knows this schedule. We update it on a regular basis. There's a certain cutoff, and after this cutoff, the order is processed by the warehouse, the payment is checked, and in the course of 3.5 hours, the goods are being shipped to the dealer. Next comes the quality control on all the stages and all logistics processes, warehouse operations. We control the quality of the parts, and we have rather high targets here, 300 ppms here, or 3 mistakes in per 10,000 of shipped positions from the warehouses per day. And also the role of distributor is very high during the training processes at the dealers, in order that we use the same language with the dealers. What are the dealers' responsibilities? First and foremost, the trained and certified personnel. Without the people who would understand the specifics of this work, we cannot secure the even ordering of stock and optimize the cost for logistics and storage of goods. Also, each dealer is responsible for developing their own stocking policy. The dealer defines himself which parts they consider to be stocking parts. On the basis of certain parameters, they categorize the goods and make a decision which of the parts with what rate of demand would be stored at the warehouse or not. In order for the supply chain to be effective, we demand regular or daily stock replenishment orders based on the special guidelines. For all the Moscow dealers, we have 2 shipments per day. So the Moscow dealers have to place 2 orders per day. And these orders will be delivered the same day. A few words from the theory. The work of the whole supply chain in Russia was based on the elements of the Toyota production system, TPS. Most of you know this system well. The main focus in this system is to satisfy the needs of the customer. So customer comes first, second comes the dealer, third comes nobody, fourth comes the distributor, suppliers, and partners come number 5. What is important for the customers? High quality of service, the presence of the spare parts at the dealer's warehouse for the after service, or if these parts are usually not kept at the warehouse, the lead time for the delivery of this part has to be reasonable. Also for the dealers and the distributors, the costs are of importance. For urgent orders, for warranty repairs of the customer vehicles, very short lead time is of importance as well. The basis of this concept of delivery is the just-in-time principle. The spare parts are needed at the right time, in the right quantity, and the right spare parts first and foremost. And the second principle is GDOCA, also from the TPS system, or the quality that is embedded into the production process. To secure these principles, it is necessary to have a stable flow of parts. This can be applicable both for the production and the warehouse operations. We call this hijunka, or the stable production process. In order to secure high quality, all the processes of the warehouse, for example, are standardized. Each person knows what he or she should be doing at every moment of time. And only when and provided we have standardized processes, and these processes are really observed by the personnel, we can improve every process by using the Kaizen concept, which means the continuous improvement for all the processes and operations. In order to secure the just-in-time delivery, we have to know the real demand. For this, there is such a notion as the max principle, which means that the dealer calculates the maximum level of stock that he would like to have in his warehouse, and even if one position is being sold, like one filter, the dealer has to place an order for the replenishment of the stock either the same day or the next one. With this, the stable flow of spare parts of each position is achieved.
конечного производителя детали. Такой принцип
And this principle envisages
мы не можем ставить одни
that
какие-то планы.
we cannot set up any plans for the dealers in terms of purchasing spare parts, because the essence of the spare part is that it has to be used either for repair or maintenance.
Положить просто детали
You can't just
в складе, это
put
денег.
a certain amount of spare parts onto the shelf of the warehouse, because it means loss for the
Наши политики
dealer,
планы закупок.
a loss of profits. So we do not have this
Результат
principle of providing bonuses for some super purchases.
здоровый запас.
We have a minimal or healthy inventory with a minimal risk of empty positions. Also, the minimal risk or lack of pressure onto the dealer's inventory on the side of the distributor allows the dealer to sell and distribute the parts with full margin, thus securing very high profitability for the dealerships.
Следующий слайд показывает, что же мы
This
делаем,
slide shows what we do
общаться с
in order to communicate with the dealers using the same language, the common language, in order for them to understand our requirements. For this, we provide training for the dealers' personnel, especially those who work in the spare parts department or the warehouse department. We have two levels of training. The level one is the basic training. We acquaint them with the main terms and notions, how the classification of the spare parts goes on, how the order for the replenishing of stock is calculated, also which KPIs may be used here for the calculations. For practical trainings, we have a simulation of the logistics game. With the use of the cubes, we simulate an ad hoc demand on the side of the customers and look how the behavior of the dealer may impact the whole supply chain. Level 2 of the training is meant for the managers of the dealerships. At this level,
для дилеров знания, позволяющие
we provide the knowledge for the dealers that allow them to independently define and calculate the stocking parameters, the number of stock positions, the depth of stocks, and the level of service rate for their customers.
Также
Also,
для дилеров у нас есть
for the dealers,
стандарты.
we have some guidelines and standards in terms of the number of the personnel who have to undergo the training. Every working day, at least 2
Проанализировать спрос,
employees have to be able to analyze the demand, calculate the stock request, and send it to the distributor.
маркетинг,
As one of the requirements of the Toyota Service Marketing Program that is aimed to improve the processes inside the dealership and increase the interaction between the service department and the spare parts and warehouse department, is a systemic support, or the dealer system has to secure the necessary functions that would allow to calculate everyday orders.
несколько примеров
A few examples in terms of the KPIs which we recommend for the dealers to use and how they are calculated. The service rate, or the number of urgently, immediately available spare parts, the number of ordered parts for the dealer.
второй параметр service rate,
And the second parameter is the service rate for the work order
отношение количества
or repair order. This is the number of repair orders for which the parts were necessary and 100% of them were available, divided by the total number of repair orders for
глубина запаса,
the period. And the second parameter is the depth, stock depth, or the stock depth in months.
видны две цифры,
The turnover of the stock You see stock value at the end of the month divided by the average monthly sales. And as an example, you can see here some stock depth for Moscow and for the Urals with our guidelines. The service rate, as you see, for the work orders cannot be lower than 90%, but the figures otherwise are different for Moscow and for the Urals. The results of the joint work with the dealers, how can we see them in our system and relay them further? How we can relay the real demand of the customers? This is very important, especially for the seasonal demand goods. We have to know when the demand starts so that the stock is prepared in due time. We may achieve the optimum inventory level both at the distributors and dealers' warehouses by placing orders for the stock replenishment based on the everyday principle. We thus receive more stable deliveries from suppliers and are able to optimize thus the distributors' warehouse stocks. Also, we can very well and very precisely plan the warehouse operations, including the number of people needed, depending on the days of the week, the seasons, etc. And in conclusion, I would like to mention that only joint work of the distributor with or multiplied by the correct activities of all the dealers will allow to achieve the efficient supply chain with low costs. That's it. I wish your business to flourish, success in your work. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrei, for giving us an outline of supply chain from a service parts point of view. Next up, we'll hear some views from a logistics service provider. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Antal Mikhailits, Director of Operations for Syncreon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce the company I'm representing. Syncreon is a global provider of the high-tech industry and automotive industry. As you can see, we have a very well-balanced global platform and I think a well-balanced revenue mix from high-tech and automotive. And probably you know the company, the former name was TDS Automotive, and we are more than 20 years, have more than 20 years experiences in the logistics. Without to giving you a theoretical background about the supply chain management, but I want to ask you to take the short overview. How was the supply chain developed in the last couple of years? The supply chain became from a very simple warehouse distribution into a very complex lean supply chain management. With all of the usage of modern technologies, you can take the web solutions, IT solutions, networked systems, and traceability and visibility of the logistic processes. If we take the supply chain elements, then we can identify that the supply chain was an independent system of independent units, and in the 21st century became into a networked and integrated logistics management. And so, if we take the trends of the new logistics, then we have to identify, and we have the well-based experiences in the high-tech industry that new transitions are coming. I think nobody is concerning about now how important for the electronic industry is the reverse logistics. And if you take in consideration that nowadays a car is more a computer than a vehicle, then I think nobody is questioning that reverse logistics will became very important for the automotive industry also. Without to taking very deep details into the single new transitions, I can tell you that the supply chain is getting more and more complex, and therefore I think is very important that everybody is concentrating on the core processes and core businesses, so the OEMs, the first-tier suppliers, and also the logistics providers. This is the plant where I am actually coming from, and there are my professional experiences coming from. I am the leader for this engine plant in Hungary, and I can tell you that based on the experiences and the knowledge of a multicultural and multinational company, is I think very important to take in consideration the local specialties. And if I had the chance today to see the logistics map of Russia and how big is it, and then I can immediately tell you that it's very important in the Russian consideration that you have a smart engineering for the packaging, because if you can reduce the load of the containers, then you can save money immediately without to screwing the price down. And that is the same experience what we had in Hungary and in every country, is that you have to have the general procedures, the multinational background, but take consideration the local expertise and the local specialties. And of course, be open to learn from each other and to learn from the other industrial sectors. That's what we do. And as I said, we are well experienced in the high-tech industry, and we automotive logistics people take over best practices and solutions from the high-tech industry. And coming to the end of the presentation and to the message of the presentation, we say, Syncreon people, that our name is standing for synergy, and what we believe that which synergy of the different industry sectors, the different industrial divisions, and synergy from the best professional people, and that allows us to provide our customer professional logistics service. Allow me to the end of the presentation to show you a very famous man. I think he was really successful, and he was successful because he had a well-functioning logistics, and I can tell you that if you want to be successful, then you have to choose the best logistics service provider. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Antal, for giving us an interesting presentation on how to develop a supply chain. It was interesting, the final quote from Alexander about the logisticians being a humorless lot. Everyone who's been to my conferences when I've moderated sessions will completely agree with Alexander that we're not very funny, but I try my best. Next up, to hear a presentation from some small Russian company who have a very small plant as well, I think. I'd like to welcome to the stage Eric Barentine, the director of Avtovaz. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. I guess I was here last year, but for a different company. Also a large plant, also in Russia, but Gaz Group. So those of you who don't know me, I was also working with another well-known guy in Russia, Bo Anderson. And logistics is just one of the big problems that we've dealt with. And actually being here and listening to the rest of the speakers and walking around, I hear a lot of good theory, optimization, etc. It's intimidating because my problems are more like putting my left foot in front of my right foot. We have a lot of big problems, but we solve them in a basic way. And the good news is there are many improvements we can make without doing high-end optimization, but it means there's a lot of room left to improve what we do. So really quickly, Automotive. Everybody knows us. We're the biggest, practically one of the biggest plants in the world. We have, for the moment, largest market share. But everybody knows we're struggling. So what I'd like to do now is go through some of the basics about Automotive and then talk to you about what we're doing in logistics. So here we go. So Automotive, who we are. You might notice my format's a little bit similar to what I used last year when I was working for another company, but that's irrelevant. We build about 600,000 cars a year, and the goal is to go up to about 1 million units. That kind of capacity in Russia, together with our partner, Renault, Nissan, and Datsun. Our main brand is Lada. We now, as of last month, have about a 16.9% market share in most recent sales. So it was a lot bigger in Soviet days, but we have to deal with the current situation. We also have about 387 dealers, and we're present in 27 countries, but of course most of our sales are here in Russia and CIS. And at the moment, many of you know that we're doing a shift majorly very soon, where Renault Nissan will take over majority ownership. So there are a lot of things that have been changing for a few years, and things are still going on. The other thing that maybe most of you know is that since January, my boss, Bo Anderson, has become the new CEO. He was also the guy responsible for the turnaround of Gaz, where we went from minus 30 billion in profit to an EBIT of about 10+%. So we had a very big turnaround, and a lot of that was also done without high-level optimization, but just being smart. And I'm going to go through some of those things that we did. So, what do we want to do and achieve? We are seeking a 20% market share, and we want to grow exports by 50%. Positive free cash flow and a minimum 6% operating margin. So we think it's important that everybody has some basic, straightforward goals. And the next one's a bit more audacious. And we want to be the best automaker in Russia. So there's no shortage of jokes about Lada, but this is what we're seeking to change, and I'm going to show you how. So, there are a lot of Russian brands that have had a reputation that was less than stellar. Gazprom, Beeline, Sberbank, Aeroflot. But today, many of these brands have gone through a transformation, and they're basically seen as people have pride that work there. They're attractive brands, Russian brands by Russians, for Russians, and they have a very good marketing campaign and very good perception now. So we chose those, and we said, okay, can we do the same thing? And that's part of our goal. How are we going to build that? I'll say how. Well, right now everybody knows, as I've said, we are not in the prettiest situation financially. The good news is we're ramping up on the manufacturing side, and we hope that together with sales, then the results will come to the bottom line. So our goal is to get up to where some of our local market competitors are. One of the ways we're going to do that is with new products. Just like any business, you have to keep your customer. You've seen on the internet perhaps in some announcements that the Lada Vesta, it's based on the X-ray concept that's been shown at the auto shows in the last couple of years, and that's due to launch next year. So a lot of people are very interested in this vehicle. It's not something that's a direct replacement for our Priora, our sedan. It's a bit of a new concept, and we're very excited about it. So we think we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and this is one of the things that's going to help us. Here, for your information, is a bit of a picture of things we'll be launching, upgrades, etc., in the coming years. And it says basically we do have a pipeline, we do have a plan, and all of these we expect to help us lift the fortunes of the company. In terms of sales, other things we're doing to enhance our products is enhancing warranty. That doesn't just happen by itself. It means we have to have a good quality of parts. We have to have a good supply chain of parts to make sure that we can maintain even quality warranty repairs. Here's some other things that we're doing for the dealers to improve our relationship with them, because in the end they are our window to the customer. Increasing their margins, increasing the warranty, improving how we pay them, so we're paying competitive rates, and we want to be their top brand. And of course, again, this is all again tied back to logistics, because all of this works together. Sourcing, supply chain. A little bit about how we work together with our partners, right? Because we are in a situation where Renault and Nissan, in our world, account for roughly 30% of our sales. And also, a lot of our costs through CKD, but also localized parts. And that's a big role where logistics comes into play. Right now, all of our CKD parts generally come through a centralized warehouse outside the country. Now, if we have a supplier that's closer to us, logically, that's shipping then further away, and then we ship it back to us, plus handling, it's not smart. So we need to look at some of the basic common sense things that we can do. And this is what I mean by optimization. Some of it's really common sense that people just haven't done. And again, here a little bit about our partners. What we want to do is, again, commonize the processes. We've made some progress, but there's a lot left to do. That's, again, an opportunity. We need to set benchmarks and understand how we can perform globally. Because, again, I think, as my colleagues have talked about, this is all about data, that you make the best decisions on data, right? And we need to share the information to really optimize and leverage the global scale. Manufacturing as well. One note on manufacturing that I think I can say is that for all the challenges that still remain, manufacturing, we are kicking butt. We are producing more vehicles than we ever have at a better yield rate. So it's not that we're just adding shifts or production, we're actually performing quite well. So that's an area that's really jumped ahead. Of course, we have to make it match up with sales to sell the units and make them profitable through purchasing, and then deliver it all through logistics. So really how everything ties together, that's, I think, one important factor here, that it's not just about logistics. It's about how we all play a role in the whole system of generating profits. Similar slide to what I've used in the past. It's basically what we look for in the end. It's quality, it's delivery, on time, right amount of units, exactly what we ask for. Same thing goes when it comes into our warehouse. When we produce vehicles, same thing goes for the dealers when we deliver to them. So again, being a top-notch company, you need to perform. Really get the basics right. That's the main message here. Now, into more detail, why I'm here. Logistics. So what are we doing to overcome all our challenges? And as I said, we have a tough situation financially, but it all works by fixing our operations. So the first thing we're doing is we're looking at customer orders and production planning. If anybody's a supplier to Automotive, I know then you all have the same complaints. You can't rely on our forecasting. That's what I've heard quite a lot, and that comes down to being able to understand what the customer wants and having the production planning and ordering that matches up that well, and then we deliver properly to the dealer. And it's not unusual for us now to talk to suppliers and say, okay, wait a minute, we have our projection period, 8 weeks, we have maybe 6 weeks or 4 weeks somewhat closer to actual, and then 2 weeks frozen. And occasionally that shifts. So it's very frustrating for our partners in the overall supply chain. That's why as of next month we're starting to move toward instead of a push system, a pull system through the customer orders. Customer, maybe not end customer, but dealers. So we get them more what they want. Unfortunately, and this is the way it is, it's not unusual for a dealer to be expecting, let's say, 50 white cars, 50 black cars, 50 red cars, and they get 70 yellow and 2 green. It's embarrassing, but we know we've got some improvement to do. So again, as I said, next month we're changing our system. We're working more on production planning. And then how do we do that? Well, we have to work with the whole system. So the next step that we're working on is also together with our partners, Renault and Nissan, that we're trying to unify our contracts. So that when you do business, that we have one voice to the customer, one way of doing business. And today I know we have spoken to suppliers or people in the supply chain, and they say, wait a minute, Renault Nissan does it this way. This is the RMPO global policy. Why are you doing it the other way? And it's absolutely right. It's not a good way to do business if we hope to have synergies together. So that's one thing we're changing again is the contracts, to unify them, have more global standards, so that we can also support production planning in a better way. Beyond the contracts, this is one thing to mention also. As we do CKD, which is a good third of our business, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of logistics, it's extra handling. Now, of course, if you do through an intermediary in logistics, who is your relationship with, right? So if we are the end customer for the supplier, we get the parts, we have to deal with the problem, but if we're doing this intermediary system, then we have problems with communication, we have defective parts, who's responsible, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, again, one of the areas where we just want to do the common sense approach and simplify it. Right? Why go through from France to Romania, back to Russia, if we can go direct from France? Occasionally there are reasons why we would do that, but we just need to use some common sense for optimization. The other thing we're looking to do is basically, click too fast, milk runs. Right now, everybody that's in close proximity to our major production locations, there's a real mix of the type of contracts we have, and therefore effect on being able to manage push and pull. There's also a huge effect on how efficient we are in delivering to the line, which creates unnecessary problems when it comes to incomplete vehicles, stockouts, etc. So one example that we had is with one of our suppliers that's located right next to our plant. I mean, you could literally jog to the plant in 10 minutes. And yet, this supplier was working with a logistics provider who was quoting 8.5 hours. 8.5 hours to do a round trip to the plant. I mean, can you imagine that? You're right next to the plant, you can see it, you can throw a rock at it, but you have to pay 8.5 hours of truck time in order to get to the plant and back. Now, why is that? Maybe some bad quoting, but also those of you who've been involved with Automotive, you know you get to the front gate and it's Russia. Do you have the right paperwork? Yes, I do. No, you don't. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Excuse me, let me go talk to some boss. And you sit there and wait. Then you go through, then you get to another line. Then you go to the loading dock or offloading dock, and then somebody's at lunch. The next person comes and they're not qualified. And it goes on and on, but 8.5 hours is what it was. The good news is, this was actually something that the supplier brought up to us. And what we did, we put a team on it, and we've reduced it now to, I think, about 1.4 hours, right? And that's realistic if you have to unload a truck and wait and go through this. So there's a lot of optimizing we're doing. It's also about, do we need to have a large truck or go to smaller trucks and milk runs? And again, it's common sense, it's basic. So what happened when we first tried to do this? First, we had these large trucks that were delivering to the line. We filled them up, and it took a while to the warehouse, and it took a while. Then we said, okay, guys, now we know what the problem is. Let's fix it. How did we fix it? We used the same damn big trucks, loaded them maybe 20% full, and ran them more often. So, okay, it's baby steps. So we have to learn from everything. So now we're doing with many of the suppliers more frequent runs. We've optimized the logistics, and we're able to do it in a much better fashion. Therefore, instead of loading up a lot of things on the trucks as well, we get them now delivered instead of to the warehouse, but direct to the line. And that's solving a couple problems. For example, when we're delivering huge deliveries in a large warehouse, we have a lot of parts. And there's also the potential for theft and mismanagement, slow-moving goods, obsolete goods, getting all mixed up because there's so much. And my boss had a nice example. He said that when he was younger, he used to steal beer from his father. So he said his father had a bunch of beer in the fridge, and he would go every now and then and grab a cold one. Pop it open, have a beer as a young kid, and then get rid of it somewhere. Then his dad kind of figured something out, and he said, okay, he just kept about 2 or 3 beers in the fridge at a time. So my boss was then afraid to take a beer because you would see it right away. And that's a little bit what I think we're facing at Automotive, is that we need to simplify things. We need to make them clear so you don't have to have complex systems to manage things. We still need good systems, but we need to really think about the basics. And again, this is no small problem, but we are making some success. So with our partners in places like Izhevsk, we're able to use simple things like, it's a technology that we almost never heard of. It's called EDI. Maybe it's been around for, 20, 30 years. We have implemented it, but not evenly. It's basic data interchange, and we're doing so better at places like Izhevsk, where we're building alliance vehicles and our own. And it's an opportunity, and we're using best sort of success cases to show where we can succeed. Kind of redundant to say success cases where you succeed, but we are making small steps forward, and that basically shows other people in the company and on the outside that it can be done. But it's going to be a long, hard slog. We're changing a large, I would say more Soviet-style company, very political, and people who didn't feel the pain. There's no secret, we didn't make a lot of money last year. We lost a lot of money. But still, people didn't seem to have a sense of urgency. They gave salary increases. There were investments made in the plant that aren't being used. So now it's about being more pragmatic, being disciplined, and doing the smart and easy things. So in closing with that, one thing I'd like to say is that we know we have problems. Nobody's going to turn around and say that Automotive is a well-oiled machine. But the good news is we know what to do. And part of this is how logistics, purchasing, and everything works together, and really doing the simple things first. So if I just click on to the next page, which are our main final page, is we want to bring pride to Lada and the brand, as I showed you in the beginning, just like other brands have done, and catch people by surprise. Who thought Lada could do this, or who thought Automotive could do this? And that's why we're here. We're going to focus on the new products that I've shown you. We want to develop our people, together with Renault and Nissan. We're using their common processes. We're training each other through global standards. We're focusing on the main tenets: quality, profitability, and market share. And as I said, working together with Renault and Nissan allows us to both train people, to develop careers, create career paths, and offer opportunities for everybody. And of course, we are Lada. We're not Ferrari. We want to offer the best value for the money, no matter what we do. So we're just beginning, and I want to say thank you very much, but before I end, I want to also say what we've done in the past, the survey. When we've done surveys, we did with dealers, with customers, very, very effective, very helpful. So I would encourage everybody to access the survey and fill it in. Beyond that, I say thank you very much for having me, and we'll have some questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. You've given a few kind of questions and points that came up from your presentation. I mean, one of the things you were talking about is efficiency. And what can be more efficient if you're changing company? Why not change to a company where you only change one letter? So I don't know if you give out your business card and you just cross out the G and put a V in its place. I should also point out, unfortunately, Bo Anderson will not be able to make his keynote presentation at the dinner tonight. That is because he's got a visitor over, a certain Carlos Ghosn. So unfortunately, for obvious reasons, we're kind of coming second to that. But I do appreciate the support that we get from Bo and Eric, and Eric making his way very quickly down to our conference. I'd also be very interested to know, maybe one of the Russians can tell me afterwards, how the translators translated kick butt that you used. So that'd be an interesting point to pick up. And the Renault-Nissan guys who probably just started thinking, wow, we finally managed a way of trying to get a Japanese company and a French company to work together and understand each other. And now welcome to the Russians as well. So, but a very interesting presentation there, Eric. Thank you very much. Next, just to say a few words, and I think Oleg's going to make them from there. So, just some opening remarks from Oleg Shamba, the Director of Supply Chain Management from Chrysler Russia. Okay.
Добрый день, добрый вечер, может быть.
Good afternoon or good evening or whatever. I'm logistics director or supply chain management, whatever you call it. To begin with, what's Chrysler Rus today? Many of you know that the company is now called Fiat Chrysler, and we present a big lineup of products. It's not just Chrysler, it's Jeep, Dodge, and brands, well, talking about multiculturality of our company, like after was Nissan, Renault. Nobody knew how they were going to work together, French and the Japanese, and now Russians joined them. So Fiat and Chrysler may be even more difficult. Can you imagine the American mentality and the Italian mindset, and it's all mixed up in Russia with the Russian attitude. But there's nothing to fear of there. It's even good. It's even an advantage. But I don't even know how to say this in Russian. Supply chain. How do you say it in Russian? Well, the right thing to say is that we have to think of it, the importers, the manufacturers, we have to think not just of some straightforward logistics, but the logistics providers need to understand how we see the process in general. I started my career in logistics in 2001 with Mercedes, and there were only two topics in supply chain. One was to bring from point A to point B, and the most difficult one was to get your customs clearance. So two things, transportation on the one hand and broker on the other hand. There was nothing else to it. It was all on paper, of course, and no EDI systems at all, as our Avtovaz colleague has just told us. How do we build our process? When we plan our sales volumes as supply chain, we work closely with our colleagues from sales. Many are saying that most important for sales are the dealers. But then when you look at the market, you're trying to strike a balance between the interests of your dealers and the distributors, because dealers often overestimate or underestimate the market because they have a very narrow view of the market, while importers, the distributors, have to think of future trends, whether the market is going up or down, which regions will grow, which will fall. You got to think of it all the time. So it's not supply chain, it's marketing that works there. And supply chain takes that as a trigger, that data. And they need to plan production. And that's what we do too. We plan our car production for 12 months, 24, 36 years. That's midterm planning. Besides, we have monthly planning, then we have weekly monitoring. So Chrysler Russia, that imports vehicles from many countries worldwide, because we have manufacturing facilities in Canada, Mexico, Italy, Turkey, France, and we import them from everywhere. So we need to combine all those flows, assemble everything, combine, bring to Russia, think how many we need in Russia. Maybe we need to leave something outside of Russia. And then the rest, take them to our dealers, who are our customers, even though dealers are not, of course, customer. When we say customers, we don't mean dealers. We mean our end consumers. And when we say our distinguished customer or client is the one who drives our cars, those who buy our parts, and so on and so forth. Now, talking about the role of supply chain in the in our company, one of our headquarters, which is in Torino, Italy, we had a discussion how to imagine the role of supply chain in the company. If you think of a company as a big orchestra, which manufactures, say, some musical instruments, then maybe a tube or a flute, then others do drums. Well, supply chain or violins, then supply chain, they're rather drums. They do the drums, and we only set the rhythm of the process, from planning to production, operations, distribution, deliveries. Well, to say that supply chain plays an important role in the process for Fiat Chrysler would be the right thing to say. And the internal policy of the company is that supply chain is involved in every decision, in every business decision. Because, as I said, it's important for all that whatever one has thought and planned, it needs to be done within the time established. So it's about our work with our service providers, and I will support what previous speakers have said. It's mostly about quality, it's about price, and it's about your capacities, and it's about teamwork. We should not, it's joint play. We should not play against each other. We can press on you so that you're cheap. We will press on your price. You get cheaper, but then what if something breaks down? Well, the way we do it, we have adopted a policy of deep respect to our service providers, and I'm saying this very honestly, and a balance of interest, which should be respected, because we expect our providers to respect us, that they follow our rules, observe our standards, and be it the vehicles they use to deliver our cars, or the equipment they have on their warehouses, be it in Russia or elsewhere. The standard approach has got to be the same. And naturally, service providers should look at the market as we do, trying to understand what's going on. It's obvious that the market is depressed now. It has touched the low segment, the medium segment. It will soon touch the premium segment as well. Perhaps we may see a situation, a repetition of year 2009, when people will say, okay, our business is not doing very good, and we have to think together, how do we survive, all of us? What do we do to continue selling cars? Maybe we should get married. That's the worst that can happen, unfortunately, the worst in communications. But everybody has had that sad experience. It has been sad for us too, but we've all managed to overcome that, and we're still there. You're all part of the orchestra that's playing this big piece, and it's important for us to have this triangle hitting it a little bit to signal that we're all together in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think some great presentations giving different views of the same topic, but it was great to hear so many different versions of it. So I think that I'm sure we can find some discussion points from that. Before we start the discussion, I'd just like to remind you that at the end of the session we'll be having some voting, a voting survey. To be part of the voting survey, you have to log in to Automotive Logistics Live Russia. So again, just a reminder, the instructions are at the back of the conference program. So please log in and be ready for the voting questions in about 10-15 minutes. One of my favorite descriptions of supply chain I only found recently as what others promise, what other departments promise, whether it's sales and marketing or production or manufacturing, it's supply chain that makes it happen. And I think that sums up a lot of what we do, whether hidden, the drum beat of an orchestra, the heartbeat of a company, and the people who are forgotten sometimes, but that make everything happen. But I'd like to firstly give you the opportunity, if you've got any questions that you want to ask. The usual rules apply. Your question can be in Russian or in English. You have to raise your hand, wait for the microphone so that it can be translated as well, and say your name and your company name, and I look forward to your questions. So the first one in the middle there.
Здравствуйте еще раз. Екатерина Меньшикова, компания General Motors. У меня вопрос будет к Андрею.
A question to Andre. Thank you very much for your presentation. You have said more than once that dealers are supposed to place their orders twice a day. They have to comply with, stock. The question is, how do you control the compliance by your dealers? And what happens if your dealers fail to comply, considering as any financial aspects, such as bonuses, are not part of your system? Thank you. Control of our dealer recommendations is performed by a team of local representatives who visit their dealers on a regular basis, issue reports and recommendations. There, we have no penalties contemplated for our dealers. We always try to to reach a compromise.
Okay. Any other questions?
Good afternoon, Volvo Trucks, and my name is Julia. My question is to Andrei about the distribution and delivery of spare parts to the dealers from the manufacturer's plant when we have preventive repairs. How are you working with this? What's your main idea? When we receive the information from the manufacturers about the recall campaign, we have an approximate amount of vehicles that have to be repaired. When we know approximately the ratio of brake hours that may happen, that's why the approximate number of spare parts may be shipped, and on our side, on the side of the distributor, we notify the customers to come to the service station and check their vehicles whether they have certain things to be repaired or not, and then the repair works are being conducted. Have I answered your question? Okay, thank you.
A question from my side is good supply chain about complexity or simplicity? I'll start on the far side with Eric on that one.
Thank you, Louis. I think based on what I said, you know what I will answer, and I think it is inherently complex, especially as we've talked about, you have different partners in the game. There's the discussion about communications are not always so easy. So trying to take a complex situation, make it simple. So I think it should be simple, but it is inherently complex, and that's what I mean. Let's find smart ways to simplify what we deal with. I hope that answers.
Yeah.
Да, я поддержу Эрика, потому что на самом деле supply chain это сложная штука очень. Особенно, когда мы говорим не только о транспортировке и логистике, да, но мы тоже всегда стремимся ее сделать как можно более простой, так наиболее удобно работать со всеми партнерами и собственной компанией тоже.
And within our own company as well.
I think the automotive providers know that life is always complex, but of course, as my colleagues said before, that we are aiming to simplify the business, to get standard work done, and to get improvements done, and to achieve zero defect, the best quality. That's how we are thinking.
С нашей точки зрения цепочка.
The supply chain has to be complex on the one side in order to have all kinds of alternatives for each route in order to secure the non-stop deliveries. But on the other side, when we deliver to the dealerships, we have to take into account the volumes per dealers, the possibilities of consolidation, and the possible use of the transport that is coming back to us in order to deliver goods from the Russian suppliers, so that logistics will become more and more complex.
Andrei, back to you again. We're looking at the complete supply chain in most of this session. Can you or do you work with production or vehicle logistics to see if there's any synergies, any efficiencies that can be had from working together?
Скажем, в нашей компании
In our company, these are different departments that deal with these issues in spite of the fact that we are doing the same business. Visually, we are trying to achieve, as we put, the full satisfaction of the customers, but our goals and objectives are different in these different.
And to Antal, whenever there is a survey, or often when there is a survey of who has the best supply chain in any industry, Apple often comes top. And recently my daughter got a box delivered to our house, and like any parent, because it was my daughter, I looked at the box, I checked to see what it was, and it was from Syncreon. So I was interested to see what the heck is Syncreon sending my daughter. When she opened it up, it was an Apple iPod that she bought from Apple directly from their website. So is there anything